Okay, this is a video on simplifying radical expressions. Um, again, we don't like radical expressions in the denominator. Again, it's not a great reason why. It's more of a formality. Again, it's harder to think about what this would be when divided by a rational expression. With calculators and such, it's not a big deal. But for the sake of that we've always done it this way, let's figure out how to rationalize the denominator here. Okay, so let me copy this down. We have 2 minus root 15 over root 5 minus 1. And typically with these rational expressions, you want to simplify anything under the square root, or if we had common factors on the top and bottom, we want to simplify those first. In this case, the square root of 15, right, you could write that as 3 times 5, but those don't have any, you can't take the square root of either of them, they're both prime like that. Um, so this is kind of as good as we can do. So again, this is an expression, so we cannot just write equals something something and add to both sides, right? There's no equal sign, so you can only do one thing to expressions. You can multiply expressions by 1, and that will be itself, right? Anything times 1 is itself. But in this case, we're going to want to multiply by something over something, the same thing over the same thing, which is 1. To maybe change this up a little. And what we do is when we have something like this on the bottom is we multiply by the reciprocal, and the reciprocal of this is just that but with a plus sign, right? And if this had a plus sign, that would be a minus sign there. And you'll see why in a second. So again, this is 1, right? This is some number over some number, which is the same thing as 1, right? So let's see why this works out so well. So let's pull this off to the side. We have this times this. Okay, let's do the FOIL. So the first ones we multiply, we get equals root 5 times root 5, which is 5. And then let's do adder. Root 5 times 1 plus root 5. And then root 5 times minus 1, so we get minus root 5, and then we get minus 1 times positive 1, which is minus 1. Okay, so what happens to these root 5s? Well, they cancel out very nicely, and then we just left with 5 minus 1, which is 4. So this, I'm not going to put an equal sign, I'm going to put an arrow because it's not an equation. So when the denominators multiply, we get rid of that root sign, and we're just left with 4 on the bottom. On the top, we are left with 2 minus root 15 times times root 5 plus 1. And if you want to simplify this, we can do that. This is probably okay, but let's see what happens if it can get any simpler. So let's FOIL again. This is equal to 2 times root 5, 2 root 5. Outer, 2 times 1, we get plus 2. Inner, minus root 15 times root 5. So minus root 15 times 5 is, I'll pull up my calculator to not make any mistakes here. 15 times 5 is 75. 75. And then last is minus root 15. Okay, so this doesn't look that good. Let's see what this comes out to, right? 75 is 25 times 3, which is 5 root 3. So again, we can't really, I mean, at best what we can do is write this. This is 3 times 5, which we can write as separately, so that could be root 3 times root 5. And And again, we can't really do too much with this. We can do, um, yeah, I'm gonna say that this is probably the nicest answer we're gonna get. Okay, so that's simplifying. You always multiply by the reciprocal. Um, a few common ones, if you have like 1 minus root 2, you would multiply by um, 1 plus root 2. If you had, yeah, so yeah, 1 minus root 5, you do 1 plus root 5. Pretty simple like that. Just, whatever you do, just change that sign. That's pretty much all it is. Okay, I hope this helped, and email me if you are still confused.